In the heart of the Dark Temple, Jinwoo had finally adapted to his surroundings, pushing his body and mind to their absolute limits. At first, he struggled to keep up with the relentless attacks of the stone statues. But now, his sharpened senses could easily track every ambush, every calculated strike. Hot breaths escaped his mouth and nose as Jinwoo finished his warm-up. Now, his body was ready. No longer relying on sight alone, his heightened senses detected every movement, spears thrusting from the left, axes swinging from above, great swords slicing from the right. The stone statues moved like coordinated warriors, relentless and brutal. But Jinwoo did not falter. With each breath, each step, and each slash of his dagger, he countered them with precise, instinctive strikes. He fought not with mere sight, but with an overwhelming sense that warned him of danger, even from behind. With a single leap and a swift slash, he beheaded an ambushing statue without missing a beat. Just as he gained control over the battle, the true threat revealed itself: the colossal god statue. Rising from its throne, its sheer size shook the entire room. Every step it took caused the floor to quake like an earthquake. Raising its massive hand, it smashed the ground, obliterating dozens of stone statues in a single blow. Jinwoo barely dodged the attack, realizing this was his greatest challenge yet. When the god statue's eyes lit up with a deadly red glow, capable of disintegrating anything in its path, Jinwoo found himself cornered with no way out. But in a split-second decision, he used his skill Ruler's Hand to grab the surrounding stone statues, hurling them into the air as makeshift shields. The deadly red beams melted the statues in an instant, but Jinwoo managed to evade the fatal attack. At that moment, his skill evolved. Ruler's Hand became Ruler's Authority, unlocking an even greater power. Realizing there was no point in defense anymore, Jinwoo changed his strategy. He had to take down the god statue. Activating his speed boost, Jinwoo dashed forward faster than the statue could perceive. With a powerful leap, he launched himself toward the towering foe. In the air, where he couldn't dodge the deadly red beams, Jinwoo knew this was a one-shot gamble. But without risking everything, there would be no victory. Clenching his teeth, Jinwoo soared like a missile straight toward his enemy, shouting in his heart, "Die!" In that single decisive moment, everything would be determined: victory or death.
In a moment where time seemed frozen, Jinwoo soared to the eye level of the colossal god statue. Everything around him slowed down so much that he could see each bead of sweat flying through the air, as if caught in slow motion. His body entered a state of hyper-focus, where a single mistake could mean death. But Jinwoo didn't falter. He forced himself to utilize every stat point he had earned through tireless grinding. The god statue's enormous eyes slowly turned toward him, crimson light gathering in their depths. Jinwoo could feel the deadly heat building up, sending chills down his spine. A single blink and he would be vaporized. But he stayed calm. Stretching out his left hand, his weaponless hand, he activated the upgraded skill, Ruler's Authority. With this power, he forcefully pulled at the statue's massive shoulder. Although its gigantic weight prevented it from losing balance easily, the opposing force unintentionally pulled Jinwoo closer, allowing him to land safely on its shoulder. Just as the deadly red beams shot out from its eyes, burning through the space Jinwoo had just passed, he had already escaped danger. Now, in the brief pause between the statue's attacks, Jinwoo had a few precious seconds. He sprinted across its broad shoulder toward the neck and unsheathed the Demon King's dagger. Silver flashes burst with every slash. Slash, slash, slash. But no matter how many times he struck, his attacks barely scratched its stony hide. For the first time, Jinwoo questioned the sharpness of his Demon King's dagger, the weapon forged from the shell of a boss naga, stronger than steel. Suddenly, a massive hand swept toward him. Before it could grab him, Jinwoo dashed behind the statue's neck and crossed to the other shoulder, realizing how incredibly high up he was. Once again, the statue's enormous head turned to face him. But Jinwoo had fought opponents immune to blades before. If he couldn't cut it, he would break it. Despite not having invested heavily in strength lately, Jinwoo's eyes gleamed with determination. Let's finish this. He leapt toward the statue's head and slammed his fist down, his hand buried deep into the stone surface. Hanging by his left hand like a mountain climber, he pressed himself against the statue's face and prepared for the real attack. His back, shoulders, and right arm stretched wide as he gathered an immense storm of magical energy into his fist. The entire temple trembled with the surge of his power, astonishing even the observing angel statue. The angel's eyes sparkled with excitement and awe at the incredible display. Then, boom! The Jinwoo's fist smashed into the god statue's face. Boom! The giant staggered slightly, but the blows still weren't enough to bring it down. The statue tried to fight back. It raised its own massive hand and slapped at its face as if swatting a fly, attempting to crush Jinwoo clinging to it. Jinwoo laughed, evading the blow by jumping down onto the shoulder, then climbing back up again. Crack! With each impact, cracks spread further across the god statue's body, forming a massive web of fractures. But the god statue, struggling to keep balance, made a desperate move. It staggered forward, heading straight for the opposite wall, intending to crush Jinwoo against it. Each thunderous step shook the earth as the distance to the wall rapidly closed. Jinwoo knew time was running out. With no other choice, he gathered every ounce of his strength, pouring all his magical power into his right arm for one final blow.
Every muscle, every vein in his body bulged with power. His eyes burned with fierce determination. This was the power of a level 103 hunter. And just before the god statue crashed into the wall, Jinwoo unleashed his final punch. A strike that would decide everything.
A thunderous crack echoed throughout the temple as half of the god statue's head shattered and fell. The entire sanctuary trembled violently. The enormous body of the statue crashed to the floor, sending shockwaves through the ground. A dense cloud of dust rose, filling the air like a thick fog. And from that dust, Jinwoo emerged, standing tall and proud. His breath was heavy, his chest heaving, but his gaze remained sharp and unyielding. He had done it. He alone had defeated the mighty god statue. For a brief moment, he remembered the faces of the hunters who had fallen here before him, but there was no time for reflection. The remaining statues rushed him without pause, giving him no moment to rest. A fierce army of stone warriors surrounded him from all sides. But Jinwoo was no longer the same. With a single thought, he activated ruler's authority, and an invisible force stopped the charging statues in their tracks. He looked down at his hands, feeling the magic surging through his veins. His chest trembled, not from exhaustion, but from awakening. Something inside him had been unlocked in this battle. Then, slow clapping echoed through the silence. Jinwoo turned toward the sound to find the angel statue applauding, a gentle smile on its lips, but a murderous gleam in its eyes. "Impressive," it said. But Jinwoo wasn't deceived. He remembered the promise. The angel would answer his questions if he completed the final trial. But instead of answering, the angel laughed ominously. "The test isn't over yet." It stepped forward, closing the distance. "There is one last trial." Finally, it stopped in front of Jinwoo and declared, "I am your final test." Suddenly, the angel's thin wings twisted grotesquely, transforming into arms. From its shoulders and back, 8 muscular arms unfurled, each fist clenched and ready for battle. Jinwoo frowned, but before he could speak, the angel interrupted. "Don't worry, attack freely. Kill me if you can." Jinwoo hesitated. He feared that killing the angel might prevent him from getting the answers he sought. But the angel simply pointed at its own head and said, "Everything you want to know is right here." Everything? Cold sweat formed on Jinwoo's brow. The angel smiled mechanically and warned, "If you hold back your power, you'll never unlock your full potential." Then, without speaking, a message echoed in Jinwoo's mind. "Emergency quest. If you fail to defeat the enemy within the time limit, your heart will stop beating. Time remaining, 10 minutes, 0 seconds. A second passed. Time remaining, 9 minutes, 59 seconds. Jinwoo's heart pounded fiercely, his breath quickened, his fingers trembled. Watching his reaction, the angel gave him his first answer. "You asked who I am, didn't you? I am the creator of the system." Meanwhile, outside in the real world, chaos was unfolding. Japan had become a giant dungeon. In his office, Woo Jin-Chul frowned as reporter Kim Genja yawned lazily, refusing to go to the scene. Then Woo Jin-Chul's phone rang. It was a direct call from the reporting center, a sign of an emergency. "Remember the school where the orcs appeared?" Woo Jin-Chul asked. "What now?" "A new gate just opened in the schoolyard, and it's a double dungeon." "A double dungeon?" Woo Jin-Chul was shocked. And then came the final report. "And Hunter Sung Jinwoo has already entered it."
Almost instantly, the angel statue unleashed its devastating assault. A fist like a thunderclap hurtled toward Jinwoo at blinding speed. He couldn't dodge, he knew it. Instinctively, Jinwoo raised his arms to block. Bang! The sheer force of the blow sent him crashing into the temple wall, shattering it into rubble. Cough, cough. Barely catching his breath, Jinwoo struggled to remain conscious. But there was no time to recover. The angel was already upon him with another strike. Chat! Jinwoo tilted his head just in time, the massive fist smashing through the wall where his skull had been. 8 arms, 8 unstoppable weapons rained down mercilessly. Each blow could crush a top-ranked hunter. But somehow, Jinwoo began to block them. 2 human arms deflecting 8 divine strikes. Their movements became blurs, after-images dancing in the dim light of the temple. For the first time, the angel felt something unusual. Excitement. This was no longer a test, it was a true battle. And then, Jinwoo struck back. Boom! The angel toppled across the floor, a hairline crack appearing on its perfect face. Ha 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 ha. The laugh echoed in the chamber, a sound of pure, rare joy. But Jinwoo could not smile. He knew the battle was far from over. Blood trickled into his eyes, obscuring his vision. He realized close combat was a losing battle. The angel wasn't just strong, it was monstrous, towering over him, armed with 8 deadly weapons. Jinwoo changed tactics, using ruler's authority to press its head down, but the angel shrugged it off with ease. To his shock, it was using ruler's authority too. Then it summoned the fallen weapons, wielding them all simultaneously. Jinwoo only had 2 daggers. No time to hesitate, he summoned the Demon King's daggers and dove back into the fray. The battle became an orchestra of chaos. Swords, axes, spears, and hammers clashed against his daggers. Sparks and shockwaves
filling the air. But as the seconds passed, Jinwoo grew faster, stronger. Mid-battle, his body evolved, surpassing his limits in real time. And then, finally, chop! One of the angel's arms fell away. Ah! For the first time, it knew pain. Enraged, it summoned all the statues to attack, but Jinwoo didn't waver. He dodged fatal strikes, endured the rest, and kept pressing forward. Finally, his dagger reached the angel's throat. Pinned and powerless, the angel whispered, "I yield." The room fell silent. The countdown froze at 2 minutes, 11 seconds. Breathing heavily, drenched in sweat and blood, Jinwoo asked the question he had carried all this time. Who am I?
As Jinwoo battled within himself for answers, the outside world trembled in fear. The elite team of the Hunter Bureau, 7 of the strongest hunters, arrived at the scene. Woo Jin-Chul led them, yet deep down he knew their power was nothing compared to what was unfolding inside that dungeon. At best, they could buy Sung Jinwoo some time. They stepped into the schoolyard, where the dungeon gate loomed, radiating a suffocating magic aura that twisted the very air. Even seasoned hunters felt their knees weaken. Woo Jin-Chul, removing his sunglasses, stared into the void. What he saw wasn't just darkness, it was the silhouette of death. Shaking slightly, Woo Jin-Chul gave his order. Send an urgent request for backup to the Hunters Guild. Inside the double dungeon, Jinwoo finally asked the ultimate question. Who am I? The angel statue smiled, unfazed despite the dagger pressed against its neck and its missing limbs. The answer is within you. Then the voice of the system rang out. Loading stored data. Accept. Yes or no. After a moment of contemplation, Jinwoo made his choice. Yes. Darkness enveloped him. When he opened his eyes, he stood on a vast red plain stretching to the horizon, strange jagged rocks piercing the sky. In front of him, millions of magical beasts, from high orcs to giants, lined up in perfect formation, staring up at the sky. Above them, a colossal black gate, floating like a dark ocean in the sky, cracked open. From within it, an army of silver-armored soldiers with black wings poured out like a storm. The air filled with the clash of horns and roars, steel on steel, blood on earth. An apocalyptic battle unfolded before Jinwoo's eyes. But then, as the beasts were slaughtered, something unexpected happened. The silver soldiers froze. Not out of mercy, out of terror. Their trembling hands, their wide, horrified eyes, all pointed to one place. Jinwoo turned to follow their gaze. And there, from the spreading darkness, emerged a figure clad in black armor, exuding an aura of death, the Shadow Monarch.
the battlefield fell silent. Even the mightiest warriors bowed in fear before him. With each step the monarch took, the darkness crept forward, swallowing the battlefield. And then, incredibly, the silver soldiers, those once unstoppable warriors, retreated. Without a word, without a battle, they fled. And in that stillness, the monarch's voice finally echoed, deep and cold as the void itself.
Jinwoo's heart pounded violently, mirroring the turmoil unfolding before his eyes. From the Shadow Monarch's throne, a single word shook the world. Rise. Darkness surged like a tidal wave, swallowing the blood-soaked battlefield. Shadow soldiers clawed their way up from the earth, their black, soulless eyes fixed on the enemy. They no longer knew fear, only purpose. The Silver Legion trembled before the tide of undeath. But the monarch was not finished. Strengthen! A roar that split the skies and trembled the ground. The shadow soldiers roared in unison, their forms evolving into elite warriors. The battle restarted with a thunderous crash. Silver against black, heaven against darkness. The battlefield became a maelstrom of steel and shadows. But even the resurrected shadow soldiers couldn't overpower the Silver Legion's skill and coordination. Yet they had something far more terrifying: immortality. No matter how many times they fell, they rose again from the shadows. A Silver Knight beheaded a shadow soldier, only to see the corpse dissolve into smoke and reassemble before his eyes. The shadow soldier, unfazed, seized the knight's sword and struck him down. Crack! And from the corpse of the Silver Knight, rise. A new shadow soldier was born. But the tides shifted again. Two massive gates opened behind the battlefield, releasing a beast horde led by a colossal wolf the size of a mountain, and an army of demons carrying the banners of ancient demon clans: Ricardo, Phytos, Loken, Ingresas, Ladis. Jinwoo recognized them. He had fought these names before. Now they had allied against the Shadow Legion. 3 armies converged on the shadow soldiers, ripping through their ranks from all sides. The balance shattered. Though shadows rose endlessly, mana was finite. Jinwoo, as one who wielded the same power, knew once the mana runs out, the resurrection stops. He turned to the monarch. The mighty king stood alone, his breath ragged, his mana draining. But he did not retreat. Mounting his black steed, he carved through the battlefield like a storm. Each swing of his sword felled thousands, yet the tides pressed on. Finally, his steed fell, and the monarch leaned against a boulder, flanked by his last 2 knights. And then came the betrayer, a demon lord in black armor, once his closest ally.
Why did you betray me? The demon, battered and broken, bowed his head and whispered, I'm sorry, but this must end today. The monarch's voice turned cold. I asked you, why? The demon laughed bitterly and spoke something Jinwoo couldn't understand, a lost language, ancient and foreign. But whatever he said, it enraged the monarch. With trembling hands, the king seized the demon's throat, fury burning in his eyes.
As the elite hunters of South Korea, led by Woo Jin-Chul and Choi Jong-in, arrived at the scene, they were met with an overwhelming surge of mana, pouring from what was supposed to be a simple C-rank date. This was no ordinary dungeon. It was the site of a supernatural battle beyond their wildest imagination. They found Sung Jinwoo lying motionless beneath the massive statue, whose head had been shattered. The surroundings bore witness to an intense battle. Destroyed statues scattered across the ground, fractured stone slabs, and an air saturated with mana so thick it was suffocating. But as the hunters rushed toward Jinwoo, Hae-in's heightened instincts stopped them cold. She sensed it first, a deadly presence still lingering, breathing within the suffocating mana, and then her fear materialized. From beside Jinwoo, the angelic statue, the very being that had driven Jinwoo into a desperate fight, slowly rose. Its wings were torn, its body cracked, and it was down to a single arm. Yet, its eyes still radiated that same icy arrogance and terrifying killing intent. It turned toward the hunters and spoke in a chilling, condescending voice. I don't recall inviting humans here. The air thickened, pressing down on their chests as though they were standing before something that transcended their reality. Not a mere monster, nor a hunter, but an ancient entity of pure annihilation. In that moment, Woo Jin-Chul and Choi Jong-in realized the unimaginable struggle Sung Jinwoo had just survived. This wasn't just a battle. This was a war against something far beyond human comprehension. And Jinwoo alone had survived. As the angel's gaze swept across them, they felt it. This battle wasn't over yet. Even weakened, the angel still possessed enough power to annihilate them all in an instant. But it didn't strike right away. Instead, it smiled, a smile cold enough to freeze the blood in their veins, as though it was waiting for something, or playing one final game. The room fell silent, and in that silence they understood the terrifying truth. Sung Jinwoo was no longer just a hunter. He was now something far greater, and the world would never be the same again.
The suffocating tension in the double dungeon reached its peak. Korea's top hunters stood frozen in terror before the living angelic statue. A monstrous stone figure radiating such immense mana that it distorted the space around it. Even from afar, they could feel its oppressive presence, as though they were standing before an abyssal void. Lying unconscious beside it was Sung Jinwoo, their only hope. No one could fathom how Jinwoo alone had battled this monstrous being and destroyed all the other statues in the chamber. But now, they had no choice but to face the nightmare themselves. The hunters were shaken further when the creature spoke fluent Korean, something no magical beast had ever done. Throughout human history, even the most intelligent monsters had no capacity for human speech, only snarling violence. Attempts to communicate had always ended in bloodshed. And yet, here it was, an ancient monster mocking them in their own tongue. Then, without warning, the angelic statue tore off the arm of another broken statue and fused it onto its own body, regenerating as though it were a living thing. In a blur of motion faster than the eye could follow, it appeared before an A-rank hunter and crushed his face with a single strike. Death came instantly. Despair rippled through the hunters. One among them, grieving the fallen, raged in sorrow, summoning fire to retaliate. But Hae-in stopped her just in time, understanding that provoking the angel now would spell their end. Even as fear tightened around their throats, the angel laughed cruelly and said, "None of you shall leave this place alive." Behind them, the dungeon's only exit slammed shut, sealed tight against their desperate efforts to escape. Then came the true horror. The shattered statues all around them began to rise, limbs broken, heads severed, holes gouged into their chests. None of it mattered. Piece by piece, they reconstructed themselves like ancient machines awakening from slumber. One colossal statue, missing half its face, lifted itself from the ground, shaking the earth. The angelic statue, standing amidst them all, spoke again. "Those who survive until my dolls fall will be honored to witness the birth of the king." Jin-Chul could not understand these cryptic words, but one thing was clear. The statues intended to slaughter them all. A red light flared in the statue's eyes, an energy blast about to fire. Jin-Chul, with sharp instincts honed from years in the association, shouted, "Everyone, get down!" The hunters dropped just in time, and the lethal beam scorched the air above them, narrowly missing their heads. But this was only the beginning. The statues charged as one. Jin-Chul met them head-on, punching with all his strength, only to find his blows left no mark on their bodies of living stone. Even his best efforts barely slowed them down. A titanic sword rose against him, and only a well-timed magical explosion from Choi Jong-in saved his life. The hunters realized something chilling. The statues could not be taunted or distracted. They would target the healers, the weakest among them. If the healers fell, the entire formation would collapse. Faced with annihilation,
Choi Jong-in made a desperate gamble. He launched a firebolt directly at Jinwoo, hoping the shock would wake him. But the angelic statue intervened. For the first time, its playful smile vanished, replaced by a terrifying rage. It flew forward, shielding Jinwoo from harm, and the fire exploded against its body. Its distorted, furious face glared down at them. "How dare you?" it hissed. "How dare you disturb the Emperor's slumber?"
As the tension reached its peak, the angel suddenly mentioned the term Emperor, leaving Choi Jong-in utterly confused. Who was this Emperor, and why did this terrifying being seem to protect him? But the angel, viewing humans as mere insects, didn't bother to answer. To him, dialogue with lesser beings was pointless. Without hesitation, the angel launched a terrifying punch, like a divine hammer, aiming straight for Choi Jong-in's head. At the last possible moment, a blinding sword of light intercepted the blow. Hae-in had arrived, wielding her radiant sword technique. Yet despite blocking the attack, the overwhelming power drove her back, her feet sinking into the ground, her wrist trembling under the pressure. Realizing she couldn't hold out forever, she unleashed her strongest attack, forcing the angel to retreat slightly. Instead of anger, the angel laughed in amusement. Finally, something entertaining. With renewed vigor, he charged, infusing both fists with monstrous mana. The oppressive force made Hae-in want to run, but with Jinwoo unconscious beside them, retreat wasn't an option. She steeled herself for what might be her final battle. The clash intensified. Her sword danced like flowing water, but she was barely able to block the angel's rapid, crushing blows. Eventually, exhaustion took its toll. A single slip of her hand allowed a punch to strike her shoulder, rendering her left arm useless. She fought on with one arm, but was overwhelmed. Her body was battered, her bones cracked, and finally a devastating blow sent her flying. As she fell, the angel closed in, ready to pierce her chest with a finger.